Okay, we got it fixed. My Bluetooth wasn't working. I'm sorry, everybody. Can you hear me now? We're good. All right. I'm starting my 13-minute timer right now. My name is Adrian. I'm an alcoholic. Hello, everybody. I am. Want to thank Juliet for inviting me to be here. It is an absolute honor and a privilege to participate in any capacity in Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're new to AA and you don't feel that way, we get it. Keep coming back. Um, AA is a way of life that doesn't appeal to everybody, and and my experience says that it doesn't always appeal to people who are living it. So there's times in this journey that I'm like, what the hell am I doing, man? Uh, the alcoholic prayer that I've heard over and over and over, like, God, good God, what's wrong with me? Uh, just what's wrong with me? I found the answer to that in Alcoholics Anonymous. And not only have I come to terms and found the answer to what's wrong with me, uh, I have found the solution here too. And that doesn't mean that the ship has been righted, um, but I do believe that thanks to God and AA, I'm on that path. And I thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous, and I thank Alcoholics Anonymous for giving me a God. And what came first, the chicken or the egg? I have no idea. I had no concept of a higher power, that it was a working concept prior to getting Alcoholics Anonymous, and I have one of those now. As you will hear many people share, I live a life beyond my wildest drunken dreams. Um, it wasn't always the case. I have about 11 minutes to share in a general way what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. Uh, my story is not your normal run of the mill story. I don't spend any time on my drunk log because my sober log is usually takes a lot more than 15 minutes to tell. My sobriety date is June 5th, 1990. I got sober 2 weeks after my 18th birthday. Save you the math. I'm 48 years old. Last June, I celebrated 30 years of consecutive, continuous sobriety, oftentimes against my will. And and for that, I'm extremely humbled and extremely grateful. Um, my road to where I am from where I was not a direct path. It's been windy. Um, most of my troubles are of my own making, drunk or sober. My life is unmanageable by me, drunk or sober. How well I know that today. I didn't always know that. The There isn't one you can go over. Okay, there isn't one solution uh, to any problem. There's not one problem in my life where I believe that the solution is more Adrian and less God. It's always more God and less Adrian. But the problem is that most of the tools that first tools that I pick up are of my own creation and of my own making. Um, with that being said, let me welcome the newcomers. Anybody who is counting days being having less than 365 days is it's a we tend to overstate time. I know I do, um, and not appreciate the miracle of early sobriety. But the thing about the miracle of early sobriety is it's like you're in a traffic jam, and you're approaching traffic, and you get rear-ended by the car behind you, and they're going about 15 miles an hour because they were all slowing down too. And so you get a little love tap, and you're like, oh, okay. But you don't see the big rig that's behind them that's barreling down on both of you at 55 miles an hour. And what I'll tell you is, I have been much more pain sober than I ever was drinking or using. I have cried more tears. I've wanted to die more days since becoming Alcoholics Anonymous than I ever did drinking and using. the frustration of being me and being stuck with who I am. And in spite of everything that Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me, I continuously and repeatedly burn my life to the ground. And I don't understand how or why, is a frustration that you can't experience unless you've done it yourself. And those of us that get sober for the first year or first 5 years, they used to say all the time, if you kill yourself in sobriety in the first 5 years, it's murder, not suicide, because you've killed a stranger, because you have no idea who you are. And of course, my alcoholic mind is like, how are you to tell me how well I know myself and not know me and all that kind of stuff? But it may not be true for everybody, but for me, the road of discovering who I really am, to find my true, genuine, authentic self, has been a hell of a process. And because for myself, I present a character to the world, and I get lost in the characters. I don't know which hat is my true, real hat. And they talk about it in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous on page 73. The topic of the meeting is going to be authenticity, your true authentic self, being real. In other words, not being a phony. And that's been a real struggle for me in my sobriety. On page 73, it says, more than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents a stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. And that's my story. That's my story sober. I got sober at 18 years old, got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was okay. It's a new world. And there was a bunch of young people, and there was a bunch of dances, and my focus became being an alcoholic and being an Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got a bunch of service positions, and I did this and I did that. And I found that people reacted to me differently based on my level of involvement, or what I said, how much what I said was centered in the steps or the solution. And so I learned to talk, and I did this and I did that. And I worked the steps, so I could gain information. What I did not understand is I worked the steps with this because my obsession was, the more that I know, the more that I can get, the further that I can get. Knowledge is power, and then on page 45, it says, lack of power, that was our dilemma. I have later found out it doesn't matter how much you know, it matters what you do. And to make a long story short, my first several years of sobriety, I didn't know this at the time, but the Big Book says that the great obsession of every abnormal drinker is that one day they will be able to control and enjoy their drinking. And I didn't know this, but somewhere in my early sobriety, my drug of choice became your opinion of me. And this alcoholic would go to any length to try to control and enjoy your opinion of me. And who is it that I need to be in this situation? And I did that. And my life took me to a lot of places. I got in a lot of relationships. I got jobs. I lost jobs. And I got in service positions. I did that. And something happened in my life when I was 13 years sober that was too much for me to take. And instead of going to bottle, I went to a casino. And now all alcohol comes in a cup. And my experience is, you don't have to drink in order to die of alcoholism. And an alcoholic addiction was born at 13 years of sobriety. And within 2 years, I was breaking into houses, stealing money, going to meetings, lying, being fake, being phony. I had an image that I thought that I had built in Alcoholics Anonymous that I needed to protect. And so I had a bunch of sponsees because I knew all the talk. I did these huge Big Book studies. I once had 213 people at a Big Book study that I was teaching. I was like, I just did the deal, and I drank my own Kool-Aid. And what happened is I kept these secrets, and I moved to another town. At 13 years of sobriety, I was suicidal. A friend in Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life by calling the cops on me. Um, I will tell you, it wasn't an attention-seeking thing. Um, and what happened is he was moving out of town and said that I could come with him. So I did a sober geographic, went to a new place, helped start another young people's committee. And within 9 months of starting that committee, I had stolen $1,200 from that committee and gambled it away. At 15 years sober, I was a resident at a sober living facility, not a manager, but a resident. Um, and I was doing everything but drinking. And and I share this with you because the important thing to understand is that we're not suffering from alcohol. The suffering that we have from alcohol ends shortly after we come to Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a suffering as a result of alcoholism, which is all here. And we can run from that and run from the causes and conditions, or we can turn about and face it. And it says, remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. I wish it said alcoholism. It said some, it says, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. And that's my message. If you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous, tell the truth. It doesn't matter how pretty it is, how ugly it is. If you're not new in Alcoholics Anonymous, tell the fucking truth. Um, you know, I have the opportunity and the occasion now to share my story, oftentimes from podiums in front of a good number of people, often. And there isn't one aspect of my story that I don't share. I share about stealing money from committees and gambling it away, for one reason and one reason only. I'm extremely honest about who I am and how I've lived. And the reason that I do that is what I've learned is phonies don't walk around talking about how phony they've been. And there came a point in time that I was going to have to uh, lose my attachment to the years that I had been sober and take ownership of the quality of my life or the lack thereof. And so if you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous, I ask that you get a sponsor. And that sponsor is the key for sponsorship to me is accountability. Because if I'm not listening to them, I'm going to listen to myself. And I have stopped underestimating the power of my mind to tell me exactly what it wants me to hear in order for to get me to do what my mind wants me to do. Um, I'll share a couple quick stories, then I'll turn it over. Um, you know, in the 10th step, it says, this is about the topic. In the 10th step, it says it's spiritual axiom that anytime I am disturbed, no matter the cause, there is something wrong with me, though we usually don't think so. And that, though we usually don't think so, is really important. Because I knew that I very much disliked not being right. I didn't know how absolutely terrified I was at being wrong. Terrified. And I was talking with my wife the other day. A guy like me having a wife, wow, what a miracle. And I want to tell you that my wife has done more to help me become the man that I am today than any sponsor ever have. God worked directly through me, through that woman in my life in such a way that I can't even begin to express and describe. And we were about 3 years into our relationship when I told her, I said, you've got to go. We got to get to counseling. I'll even go with you, but you need to work on your fucking issues. Cause I was 100, she's full of fear and I could list, she's full of fear. She's self-centered. She's blah, 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 blah. And I got this list of all this stuff. And I'm like, we got to get to counseling because I need some help dealing with your shit. Thoroughly convinced it was her. And about 9 months into the process, when I realized that I was about 70% of the cause, I got my ass kicked. And what I learned was that I will tell myself a story. And what I want to talk about for a quick second is the story, because the story is some shit, man. It's a powerful deal. So anytime somebody calls me a sponsee or a friend, anybody calls me, it's like, okay, why are you mad? Why are you upset? And it always goes the same way. I'm upset because they did. I'm upset because he did this. I'm upset. And the reason for me being upset is always someone or something else. And that's what we refer to as the story. And we have to be careful of the stories that we tell ourselves because we will believe them. And unless I come to grips with that in the 10th step, what it says to me is true for me all the time. All the time. Anytime I am disturbed, no matter the cause, there is something wrong with me. Because in every situation, it comes down to a couple things. In spite of the story, what is it that I wanted them to do that they didn't? Or what did they do that I disagree with? Somewhere, somehow, I'm deciding what's right, what's wrong, not only for me, but for other people. This is how people should get down, and you didn't get down like this, so fuck you, blah, 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 blah. Or I told them they were wrong and they had the audacity to disagree with me. Or Sam treated Mary like shit and he should apologize because a man shouldn't treat that, all this stuff. But had I not interjected myself into the decision-making deal, if I had left that to God, if I had remembered that everybody is where they are, just like I was when I was doing dumb shit, as a part of their journey and not make it about me and not decide what needs to happen, the fact that that has an emotional effect on me is all about me. That's the bad news. But the good news is, what would my life look like if the actions, attitudes, and behaviors of the other people did not influence how I felt, positive or negative? What would my life look like if I don't need you to approve of me to be okay with me? What would my life look like when I wake up in the morning and my wife says, I love you? Or if I wake up in the morning, my wife doesn't speak to me at all. And that doesn't have that power to influence how I feel. What if how I feel is as a result of an interconnection that I have with a higher power that reminds me that everything is as it needs to be at all times, at all moments, perfect, just the way it is. And the only problem ever is my decision that things need to be a different way. Small shit like that, from small shit to big shit, it gets deep. But what I tell you is that the road to a freedom comes through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and realizing that that there's not one problem in my life where the solution is more Adrian and less God. My whole life, I took the credit for everything good, and I gave God the credit for everything bad. What would my life look like if I gave the credit to God for everything good, and I took the blame for everything bad? What happens if I realize that the first person to admit they were wrong is the winner? That me owning and seeing how I am creating my discomfort and taking that to my God lets you off the hook, and it lets me off the hook too. My wife needed to go to counseling because I was so convinced that I saw her. I was so convinced of my own perception of her that I stopped seeing her altogether. And I'm grateful that I now see my wife, and I am moved every time I see her because she's the most amazing person I know. I'm grateful to be a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I wouldn't like to have anybody else's life more than I want to have my own. If you're new, keep coming back. This shit works. It's a long journey. Get comfortable, make lots of friends. And that's my time. The topic is authenticity, being real, not being a phony. And I'll turn it over to Juliet to guide me through the structure from here on out. Thank you.